Welcome to the All Things Property podcast with me, Simon Bacon of Preferential Properties. Every week, Ian Sadler and I will delve into all things property. We'll guide you through with friendly, no-nonsense advice. So Ian, we've known each other now for about 20 odd years. I thought it'd be really interesting for our listeners to just hear from both of us how we ended up in property, and how our paths initially crossed. Do you remember that day?
I do.
Go on then.
At residence car park up in Four Oaks and Wind Avenue. We were looking to sell a flat and you were coming to do a valuation on it.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
We got chatting and seemed to interest each other, amongst other things. We got talking about future in property, I guess. Yours was very well set in stone. I think mine was more a case of we'd arrived at a crossroads, Bernie and myself, and we're looking for a way forward, change of lifestyle.
Which that was a real light bulb moment for me.
I saw your ears prick up when I said,
yeah, absolutely. And I still remember it to this day, standing in that car park, having the conversation with you, thinking, yeah, seems like a nice bloke. And then you said to me, oh, we're thinking of selling. And it was like, really?
And
you said, tell me more.
Well, you said, if you get to the stage where you are putting it on the market, please consider me. So we did.
Dog with a bone, I think, is the expression, wasn't it, where I went after it?
No, it seemed it's difficult to sell a business because you don't know who you're selling it to, the impact it's going to have on your clients, tenants and landlords. So to find somebody that you feel comfortable with straight away without even advertising it was a real bonus.
Yeah. No, absolutely. So just give me a bit of background to the journey. How did you get to be Preferential Properties?
It's a long story. I used to work in my own license betting office in Birmingham in Bookie, as a bookie.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah. Change of direction. I was getting disenchanted with the profession, was looking for a change. I had no idea what I wanted to do. But one of my colleagues who owned a share of a racehorse with me bought a property management franchise, spent £10,000 of his hard-earned cash. So I thought, well, that sounds interesting. It's a challenge.
So I said, any experience?
No experience in property at all, just horses, four-legged horses, greyhounds. So I said, do you fancy taking on a partner? And he thought about it for 5 seconds, said yes. I think he liked the idea of having somebody to bounce ideas off. You feel more secure in a business if you've got two people working in here. So I said, okay. So I put my betting office on the market, sold it, gave him £5,000 for a 50% share, and that was the start of our journey into property.
Oh, wow. I mean, my journey is so completely different. I've been in property all my life, working for estate agents, letting agents, social housing, student accommodation, facilities management, and then came back to estate agency, which is when I then met you, showing you around property. And that was just, for me, it was just an amazing moment of, I was at a bit of a crossroads. I'd come back into estate agency from working in social housing, doing a lot of travelling, and all of a sudden, family and everything else, it was like, I went back into estate agency, and then it just felt like you were saying the business was just an opportunity that it almost felt like it just fell into my lap.
It needed to be taken, didn't it?
Yeah, absolutely.
You were never going to get a better opportunity.
No.
Get into business.
And it was a real risk at the time because I was putting everything, I guess, into this idea. But I think for me, that's where that initial relationship, and I can't tell you what it was, because that initial relationship where we struck up a friendship, showing you around. And from that, I think, the fact that we still know each other and we still meet, we go to Cheltenham Festival, on the final Friday, we still meet, we still talk, we still sound each other out sometimes. I think that, for me, is just how our friendship has developed and what made Preferential as a business the right one for...
Yeah, I think at the valuation, you managed to take off your formal estate agency hat and talk informally and interact with. Maybe I brought that out of you. I don't know, but I think you didn't deal with it in a normal valuation way. I think you felt more comfortable, and then that interaction became apparent at that stage.
Yeah, but in fairness, that's what estate agency and letting agency is. It's about building relationships with people, and you know, having worked in corporate is very much target driven. You know, people who show properties often are on targets. You know, they have no real interest in building a relationship.
No, I understand that. Yeah,
and for me, that's where the business that we're in is more about building relationships with people than it is about the physical bricks and mortar on occasions, because you can't make someone buy a house or buy a flat, and you can't make someone rent a flat or rent a property. I've always believed that, you know, it's about the relationship you build. If people start to trust you, they may not buy the house that you're showing them, but if you can go away and find out, if when you're there, you can find out what their needs are. And I look back at, you know, when you and I met, we talked, what are you doing? How did I get to find out you were selling, potentially changing direction, selling your business? That was purely from conversation, rather than me being focused on this lad.
getting the business.
Yeah, getting the business. Because, you know, it was about building a relationship up, so that you trusted me, I trusted you, and even if you hadn't bought or sold that one, then there's a future relationship to be had. And that, I think, is, you know, what brings me to work every day. It is those relationships with people rather than anything else.
I think the seeds were sown on that first meeting.
Yeah. But you've actually, you know, when I think about it, I mean, Preferential Properties was set up, 1999, 26 years ago? And for a long time, I guess I felt a bit of a custodian of the business. It was your business. You sorted the name out. You'd set it up. You'd moved it forward. I was fortunate to come in when it was running very successfully. We changed a lot as the years went by, but for many years it felt like we were custodians of the business, whereas now it feels like
firmly yours.
Yeah, absolutely. But I think also the fact that you and I still have a very good relationship after we've owned the business now for, I've owned the business now for 18 years. You and I still meet, we still talk, we still go through legislation changes, we still ask each other for advice. I think that's a really important aspect of
absolutely,
any kind of relationship.
I think it's important to have somebody to bounce ideas off if you've got something that you can't get to the bottom of in your head, and you have somebody to talk to. It makes life a lot easier.
So when you set Preferential up, I know you've talked about building relationships, but what was your philosophy to service? You know, how would you have defined the service that you were trying to provide at that time?
Well, it goes back to building relationships. I like to think I told landlords and tenants as it was. I enjoyed breaking down the preconceived barriers the tenants build up when they're renting a property. A lot of them see all the horror programs, Tenants from Hell, that sort of thing, and they go into a tenancy with a preconceived idea that it's going to be difficult and confrontational. So if you can break down those barriers at the start, it's like subconsciously they will go into that tenancy and look after the property in a better manner because it's non-confrontational, and they know that they can talk to the agent at any time pretty much and get a problem resolved if they have one. Life is difficult, relationships break up, but if they know they can talk to the agent about it, it's better than burying your head in the sand, and it's easier to resolve problems. I've always felt communication is the best way to resolve any problems or prevent future problems.
And I think for me, you know, I look at the difference between corporates, independents, family-owned businesses, etc. And I guess I find that the relationship, if you're honest with people, so, you know, I think that's what I always aspire to, is to be honest. So give people advice that is genuine and honest. They may not like it, but I always feel that if they feel that you're giving them good advice, then they're more likely to take that on board and deal with it than if you try and sugarcoat things or try and, dare I say it, bullshit to them. Most people can see that when it happens. And I look at, we've still got a lot of landlords that you originally had.
Well done.
Yeah, I know. I did quite well there, didn't I?
Yes.
You were concerned we might lose them, but we didn't. Thank you. And we've grown that. And, when the market looks, when people are saying what the market is doing at the moment, I do think that the relationship we have with our landlords, it's they trust us.
Mm.
And again, I know I keep coming back to corporate against independent, but over the years, a number of independents have ended up being bought by corporate companies. And we have slowly acquired some of those landlords who went to independent agents and then found that when they got taken over by the corporates, they were faceless organizations. They had a call center dealing with their maintenance, or they had, somebody else dealing with this or somebody else dealing with that. And what they felt was, what I found was that landlords felt that people didn't have responsibility. They weren't treated as individuals. They weren't being given advice. They were just being told, this property needs this work doing to it. You need to get it done.
I don't think landlords or tenants can appreciate the level of service they're getting from you or I until they experience somebody else's level of service.
Yeah.
And then their light bulb moment is when they think, well, we were treated a lot better before, and they come back.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So go on then, tell us, you mentioned just then about, nightmare scenarios. Give us one. Tell me what one of your more difficult, challenging situations has been.
I don't want to go into individual examples. I'd rather just say that I've had several difficult situations where tenants have experienced difficulties in relationships and subsequent difficulties in paying their rent. And I've been very persistent in maintaining a relationship with them, letting them know that they can talk at any time, and gradually bringing them around to understanding that paying off rent arrears on a regular basis, albeit a smaller amount, is far, far better than burying your head in the sand, ending up in court, being evicted potentially. So,
and do you think that's because you are,
a people person?
Yes. Yeah.
I do.
Yeah. Which is what sets us apart, I think. I think we're both people person. I think you probably have a soft approach to me.
Oh, definitely.
Whereas I'm probably a bit
harsh.
Yeah. Firmer, I would like to say,
Okay.
rather than harsh. But yes, and it's that real balance of, but at the end of it, it is trying to recognize that people are often in situations not of their own choosing, but because of circumstances. And it is a real balance then between protecting the landlord and making sure the landlord's interests are dealt with, but also respecting and trying to help the tenants out as much as possible.
Yeah, if I can resolve a situation without getting it to a stark confrontation, I'll always go down that road. It's easy to say, well, that's the situation, take it or leave it, pay the money or go to court. It's not a solution, is it?
Yeah,
there are far easier ways of dealing with problems than that. At the end of the day, everybody will walk away, if not happy, then more content that they've dealt with it that way, rather than confrontational.
Yeah, absolutely. So I guess one of my final questions, just be interesting to know, you and I have lots of similarities. I know that surprises you, but I think there are some similarities there, but we also have some real differences. In terms of your specialism, what would you say your specialism is? What are you really good at? And I'm not talking about relationships, but in terms of your business, what do you think
Well, my focus is it's a joy being self-employed. At the end of the day, running your own business, you're master of your own destiny. You sink or swim by your abilities and efforts. So I've always been able to have a handle on where I am or where I want to go. And I think it still comes back to a slightly different way of dealing with clients. They will come into a meeting, the first meeting potentially, and not expect to hear what they hear. Everybody goes into meetings with preconceived ideas about how somebody's going to handle you, what they can do for you. So if they hear something refreshing and different, that's a light bulb moment for them. And that's what, for me, often gets a client on board, is that within a short space of time, they feel they can trust what I'm saying and what I can do. And
I think that's the same. So when I said that you and I are similar, I think the same. You know, it is about that relationship. It's about someone hearing something that perhaps they may not have thought they were going to hear from you, which is what then starts to build their trust and then I suppose a bit where they start to think, actually, this guy knows what he's talking about. I'm not getting the usual, preconceived valuation or information from them. They're actually looking at my property, looking and listening to what I'm saying and giving me advice based on actuals rather than someone who just turned up and gone, well, I've rented loads of these properties or sold loads of these properties. This is what you're going to get for it. And actually, I'm not really interested in your story.
Yeah, it's a personal approach.
Yeah. But the other thing I suppose I was going to say is I think from my understanding of you and my knowledge of you, what you're very good at is the investment side of stuff, being able to talk to people about, how to make their money work, how to invest in property. I think where I come from is much more looking at the property they've got and how they can make the most of it, what they can do to make it more attractive to rent, what they can do to make it more attractive to sell, how best to go around that process. Whereas, and I am in awe of you sometimes. I wouldn't say that normally, but occasionally I am in awe of your ability to, talk the investment talk to people and explain to them how they can make their portfolio grow and grow and grow. And I like to think I've probably learned a bit from you in that respect.
Definitely. Yeah. It's a question of just making them realize and believe in you. And you have to believe in what you're talking about. A lot of them don't want to denigrate corporate businesses, but they read a script to a client, and that script, they don't deviate from that script. With me, I have a lot of experience, 25, 30 years in property, and I believe in what I'm telling the clients, and that the knock-on effect is that they believe it. And then after a couple of years, when they've experienced the actual fact of it, and what I said would happen has happened, and it engenders a level of trust that is really useful.
Oh, well, no, absolutely. I mean, and I suppose I see it from a corporate perspective. So, one of my first agencies I worked for was the old Prudential estate agents, but they were brilliant. And where corporates are really good, and I'm not, criticizing them particularly, but where they are brilliant is the training that they give to their staff. But what you said there is absolutely right. They have a tried and trusted method of going to evaluation and knowing what works, and therefore everybody is told to do exactly the same thing. And I think the market has changed and people have changed, and that's, perhaps we'll come on to that in our next episode, but how the market has changed and what, where it's going and what used to work doesn't work now. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, I think so. I think the majority of my business, it is purely investment landlords.
Yeah.
So it's slightly different to your business. I think mine's way more exciting.
No, it's not. No. I like what you do sometimes, but I think you'll find that mine's...
You need to get out more and meet people there. You won't get investors on board unless you get out there and meet.
No, I know. And that's, that's what I want to try and do, I guess, as part of the the whole podcast episode is to try and elevate ourselves, elevate the company, and to put us out there to a wider audience, because all of our business, 95% of our business is based on recommendations, which is brilliant in one respect, but in terms of growing and developing the business, it is that golden goose or golden egg of how do you find new business. You're good at it. You're probably more of a people person than I am, but that's part of the reason why I want to do the podcast, is to try and showcase what we do, how we do it, and what we can offer to people. So thank you for that, Ian.
You're welcome.
See you at the next episode.
Will do.
Thanks for tuning in to this week's episode of the All Things Property podcast. If you found this episode useful, don't forget to subscribe, like, and share. These things really help us reach the people who need to hear this advice. See you next week.